Welcome, everyone. So glad that you will open this in here today, uh, really about the question of fasting. I want to ask Barbara if she could read the wonderful piece of the book of the prophet Isaiah about fasting.
And this is a reading from the book of Isaiah. Is this the manner of fasting I wish, of keeping a day of penance? That a man bow his head like a reed and lie in sackcloth and ashes? Do you call this a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? This, rather, is the fasting that I wish, releasing those bound unjustly, untying the thongs of the yoke, setting free the oppressed, breaking every yoke, sharing your bread with the hungry, sheltering the oppressed and the homeless, clothing the naked when you see them, and not turning your back on your own. Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your wound shall quickly be healed.
As I reflected on this little piece of the prophet Isaiah about fasting, it really brought me to a question. When we listened to those who he said you need to free up, where he basically said to what? Release those who were bound unjustly, break every yoke, set free the oppressed, deal with the homeless and the poor, the hungry. And so I said to myself, if they heard this proclamation, would they say that it was good news or not? Would they say that? If I said to someone who was dealing with a yoke to ask God to lift that yoke from them, or they're oppressed and to free them from this oppression, what would they say? Hey, this is good news you're teaching us or showing us? So the reason why I say that is because what did Jesus say? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. This is from Luke 4:18. And has anointed me and sent me forth to bring good news to the poor and to set people free. So the word gospel means good news. So this is the good news that God wants us to hear. See, I'm not saying it's bad to give up candy or give up alcohol, but what the scriptures say to us today very simply is, listen, it's all about who you encounter, who you're willing to journey with. And what the gospel is reminding us during Lent, that we have to see things differently. And we have to begin to penetrate the suffering of the world that was manifested in this proclamation. Matthew touches into it, where he says very simply, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty. I was thirsty, gave me to drink. I was in prison, you visited me. I was naked, you clothed me. So fasting is more about encountering those who are on the margin, those who are suffering at the hands of life and at the hands of others, and to help them become free. And the reason why it's important that we do this is because of what I finally saw in this reading from Isaiah, the last phrase. And listen to it. Then your light shall break forth like the dawn. You'll be a light to others. And your wound shall quickly be healed. Why do we do this? Very simply, why do we actively seek to encounter those on the margin? At least we make an effort to do what Matthew 25 says. We make an effort to hear what we heard today in the reading from Isaiah. Is because you and I are carrying primitive wounds in our heart from childhood. We're carrying these wounds. And oftentimes they're repressed wounds that have mutated into a power greater than ourselves. And therefore, We have no control over it. But today's reading gave us a secret. They told us how to heal it by actively trying to bring good news to those who are suffering, to bring good news to those who are on the periphery of life, to respect them, to see their dignity, and see beneath their suffering to the image and presence of God within them. What you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you also do to God. But what if you love them and care for them and free them, then you're also touching into the mystery of God, which then God will touch into the mystery of who you are. And he will heal those wounds that you can't get to at yourself. You can't deal with them because you have no power, because they're greater than you and more powerful than you. So why do I encourage this today? To look at this in the reading of today, this Friday after Ash Wednesday, to begin to reflect on what you hear, turn to Luke 4, Matthew 25, and say, sometime during Lent, maybe I should try this and see it, even though I may be uncomfortable in it. Because the question is, can you bring good news, the gospel, to those who are not hearing any news but that bad news? Can you bring them? And if you can, in the encounter of God, then say, Lord, here I am. And he will heal the wounds of your heart. Thank you.